Right, good morning everyone, and welcome to part 2 of how to get more marks in a paper 1 on a progression test or in your final exam. Because the progression test and the final exam are going to be on the same lines. It's not going to be much difference. Last week we started looking at paper 1. We didn't quite finish, so I'm just going to go over it very briefly for those who were not here. I don't know if you remember, the first passage was about dolphins. Okay, and usually question 1 for sure is on the actual passage. They ask questions on the passage, so make sure you write the correct answer, capital letters, full stops, punctuation correct, spelling correct, okay? Because in the exam, they're not going to be so lenient as when you're doing a progression test, okay? Next thing we looked at was vocabulary. Give the meaning of the words as they are used in the passage, okay? As it is used in the passage. In each case, give one word or a short phrase, okay? So that's what you need to do. Follow the instructions. One word or a short phrase to explain that. I remember one guy, we were talking about, the passage talked about a musical score. And when it came to the vocab section, it said, what's a score when someone scores a goal in soccer? No, it's got to be about the passage, okay? So you put one word or a short phrase. You can't put the whole sentence and expect the examiner to pick out the correct one for you, okay? These are all worth 1 mark each. So make sure you know what these things are in the passage. In the Q&As, we've looked previously at puzzling words and how to try and understand them from context. So you need to do that if you really don't know the meaning of the word. Take a good guess. You might have a 50-50 chance of getting it right. So better to do that. Another one they're always going to ask is punctuation. Add punctuation to the sentences. Okay, they usually don't give you any full stops or question marks. Like this one, do you think dolphins, etc.? You need to know that dialogue punctuation, okay? You need to use capital letters. You need to use question marks or exclamation marks. One person sent me an essay, and after he had written the question mark, he would put a comma as well. And of course, that is a no-no. You've only got 1 punctuation mark. Remember, all punctuation marks are inside those inverted commas or speech marks, whichever you like to call them, okay? So you need to always come up against that punctuation. Here's another one they're very keen on, asking about relative clauses or some adverbial clauses, etc. So you need to know what these are. Again, we look at them and we look at them in the Q&As, okay? So if you need information on grammar, that's what you must listen to. Right, the relative pronoun is who, whom, whose, that, or which. You might even have to use when, where, or why, simply depending on the context of those sentences, okay? So you need to do that. Start with a capital letter, ending with a full stop, put in any commas required. You don't do all that, you get 0. Because remember, no half marks. It's all right or it's all wrong. Okay. One more thing I remember, there was one question I saw and it said, adding a relative pronoun which you must start the sentence with. So pay attention to those instructions. If it asks you to put something at the beginning, like a connector or a signposting word, you have to do that or the whole sentence is wrong. And remember, your sentence must make sense. Okay, it doesn't read like a real sentence. No good. Another thing they generally ask you to do is join sentences. Here it's got combine the 3 sentences into a complex sentence. Do not use and or but. And why? If you use and or but, it becomes a compound sentence. Compound sentence is one where you've got 2 or 3 sentences that join together with connectors. But no, they want a complex sentence. Okay, so you're going to have two clauses and one's going to have a comma, isn't it? And again, your sentence must make sense. Don't just write this comma, the next one comma, and the next one comma, because it won't make sense. It'll be a run-on sentence or a sentence fragment. It's not going to be right. Okay, so make sure you know how to write a complex sentence. Right, again, this one's very common because they want you to use different forms of the same verb. And the reason for that is they want to know you know some verb tenses, okay? So you could use the present tense and the future tense. You could use the present tense and the conditional tense. You could use the present tense, the past perfect tense, had, etc. It all depends what makes sense in your sentences. Okay, the dolphin caught, that's a plain past tense, but it did not catch the second one. That's a present tense, okay? Present tense, and that's a past tense. So the ones used here were quite simple. If they're not both correct, no mark for you. Okay. Right, now we started looking at this question last time and we didn't finish it. So I'd like to go over it again because it's very, very important. They're definitely going to give you a summary in this paper 1. If you don't know how to do it, you're going to lose quite a lot of marks. 8, I think it's 8, 4 for the first one and 4 for the second one. So you've got 8 points that you need, and that's a lot to lose if you don't know what you're doing. Right, we didn't really look at the passage last time, so I'm going to read that for you. There are more than 30 species of dolphin. Most live in oceans across the world, but there are also 6 species of dolphin which live in fresh water. And these are found in rivers in Brazil, China, Colombia, India, Nepal, and Pakistan. Dolphins are generally social animals, sometimes living in groups or pods of several hundred. That would be amazing to see, wouldn't it? Right. A number of dolphin species are classified as critically endangered, and more are known to be in serious danger, but have yet to be formally assessed. One of the greatest threats to dolphins is getting caught up in fishing nets, which cause them to drown. This causes the deaths of more than 300 cetaceans, i.e. dolphins, porpoises, and whales, every year. That's a lot of creatures. The reduction of the dolphin's prey as a result of unsustainable commercial fishing is another reason for its decline. Notice prey, the food it eats, as opposed to pray, clasping your hands and talking to some god or other, which is a verb. In order to communicate, dolphins produce clicking sounds and then receive and interpret the returning echoes in a process known as echolocation. From this, they can tell the size, shape, distance, speed, and direction of the objects, especially their favorite food of fish and squid. Yummy. The noise from naval operations and seismic activity surveys affect their echolocation, which can then cause them to become stranded on shore. Being struck by ships and other sea vessels can also cause serious and even fatal injuries to dolphins. Not good. Freshwater dolphins are vulnerable to human activities. They can be threatened by chemical pollution in rivers, lakes, and estuaries. They are also at risk from man-made structures such as dams and barrages, which restrict their movement and affect their access to prey and suitable habitat. So if you don't know the meaning of some of the words, you've got to look at the context and try to guess it. Okay, You would need to read this passage about 3 times in order to fully understand it and be able to answer the questions. Okay, let's just look at dam. It's a man-made structure. And a barrage is also a man-made structure. There's a very famous one in London. It's like a big gate that would rise up when there's a tsunami or some sort of big water flooding tides coming into London City. So they try to use the barrage when that happens. Okay, so again, if a dolphin is stuck inside a dam or beside a barrage, he can't get over it, he can't chase his prey. And suitable his environment. It's not nice if he keeps trying to get through it and is banging against those things or whatever. Okay. Right, now look at the instructions yet again. Always follow your instructions. Make a list of all the dangers to ocean and river dolphins and the results of these dangers. So that's two things you're going to be doing. Making a list of dangers and the result of those dangers. Okay. If you look at this question, you'll see they've got like a dot, which was what you would use to start your list, isn't it? Okay. So let's look at that. And on top of that, look at the marks. You're getting 4 marks. So you might need even up to 8 points. You know you won't get half marks, so 6 to 8 points are going to be good. So let's look what we've written here. First one, getting caught in fishing nets causes dolphins to drown. You wouldn't really think the fish could drown, would you? Unsustainable commercial fishing reduces dolphins' prey. So they're going to die of starvation. Some big gigantic trawler with a huge ginormous fishing net picks up all the fish, there's none left for the dolphins. Noises from naval operations, perhaps naval guns shooting at each other, submarines under the water, seismic surveys and things affect their echolocation, and that causes the poor things to be stranded on a shore. Okay. You've read about them being stranded here, there, and everywhere. It's because their echolocation has stopped working properly. Being struck by ships and other vessels causes both serious and fatal injuries. Who's going to help them if they've got serious injuries? They're most likely going to die. Human activities, as always, like chemical pollution in rivers, lakes, and estuaries, can be fatal. Risks from man-made structures like dams and barrages restrict their movement and affect their access to prey and suitable habitat. Okay, so we've made quite a long list. We've got 6 items from there, and we've got the results of those dangers. Okay, items and results. So hopefully you would get full marks if you had written all that. But it's also very important to have this because you're now going to use it for your summary. The next question is, using your list, write a summary of 80 to 100 words to explain some of the dangers to dolphins and the results of these dangers. Use your own words as much as possible. I mean, obviously there's no other word for dolphin, etc., but where you can, use your own words, put things your own way, paraphrase things. Make sure you've got 80 at least words and not more than 100, because in the exam itself, they're going to be very strict. If you've done that, you'll start losing marks. Okay, so now what you need to do is read this list of yours. Get it into your head. Think of synonyms. What words could you use synonyms for? Okay. That's what you need to be thinking about. Are there any other phrases you know? Is there a way to sum this up as well? Okay, think about those. Write down some words you can maybe use and see if they get stranded on the shore. You could say beached whales. You're always reading about beached whales. So you start looking at synonyms for these words, then you know you're not going to use the author's words, which of course is known as plagiarism, and you'll get no marks for it. Okay, let's look at a few notes on this before we read the summary. The summary should be a short, easy to read version of the passage. So in other words, looking at the topic sentences and maybe not so much the details. It should be the main points of the original text, but written in your own words where possible. Do not copy out chunks of the original, or as we said, that's plagiarism, and you get no marks. And when you write a summary, you must have proper sentences, correct grammar, and correct punctuation, or again you start losing marks. Okay, so you must be very conscious of that. Okay, and you don't put your own opinions at all. Nothing of your own. Okay, nothing. Okay, so let's take a look at the summary that we've made up now. We're taking it directly from the list you've already made. So the list is ultra important. Human activities pose the most dangerous threat to dolphins. Ships may strike dolphins accidentally, and this causes serious or even fatal injuries. Not only can they get caught up in fishing nets and drown, but overfishing also leaves the dolphins with no food to catch. The dolphin's echolocation is disturbed by certain naval operations. Further, it's also messed up by earthquake events. This causes them to be marooned on beaches as their sense of direction is muddled, confused. Freshwater dolphins suffer mainly from human pollution, which destroys their habitat. Even dams or barrages can impede the ability to travel through the water to chase after their food supply. So you can see that's one way to express a summary of that passage that we've looked at. Luckily, it's been cut down by using these notes: dangers to ocean and river dolphins, results of those dangers, and we use that to write a short summary. Okay, so it's very important that you do that. Right, and finally, the last part of your paper 1 is going to be writing. Okay, and the first thing you do is analyze the question. So you don't start writing the wrong things, and make sure you understand it. Write an article. What for? Oh, a magazine called Living Earth, about the harm that pollution is causing the planet. Okay, there's your key words, which we've circled now. Writing an article for a magazine called Living Earth about the harm that pollution is causing the planet. So, writing an article, the magazine is called Living Earth, which sounds like quite an important, who's your audience here? Quite important, quite well-off people. Okay, so the article is going to be in formal language. If you were to write it for school children or a school magazine, you would use informal language. But we're going to use formal language because it's for an important Living Earth magazine. And what are we writing about again? The harm that pollution is causing the planet. Then it usually gives you some suggestions, which you should really follow, because if you don't, it's a problem. Include the following in your article. What types of pollution are they, first of all? That could be your first paragraph. Air, water, land, litter, etc. Okay, so there's your basics. Then the causes and effects of that pollution on air, water, etc. And finally, ways to raise awareness of the harm. How can you raise awareness about all this to get people alarmed, to make people do something? And it suggests some things: films, websites, fundraising events, etc. Now, it leaves a big space for your plan, and you should really, really use it, and use it well, some people write 2 or 3 words and then just start writing ad lib what they like, when they like. But that's not going to do very well. When you've got an essay plan, think again. The article, what does an article need? You've seen it in your student book. You need a stand first, which is like a very short little summary of what you're writing about. Maybe some subheadings, maybe not, it's up to you. Subheadings can be factual, or it could be a question. What else might you need? Bullet points if you've got a list of things. In this case, we're not using images. We need a middle paragraph, which goes on to describe things. We are going to need direct speech. You must know how to punctuate direct speech. That's what they're checking. And finally, we need a concluding paragraph. So you need to think about those things in your essay plan. Now here is an essay plan. Informative article about pollution. Always put a title. We have to look at the different types of pollution. We have to look at causes and effects. We have to look at how to raise awareness. And finally, vocab you might be able to use. What comes into your head when you think of those things? Put down those words. Signposting words to join your sentences and join your paragraphs. Figures of speech you might be able to use, because that's going to look good. All right? So let's look at the first thing. Always put a title. You're going to lose a little mark somewhere if you do not put a title. So think of some titles. Here's some proposed titles. Pollution kills. Reduce, recycle, reuse. Man the destroyer. You can think of plenty of your own. You might want to change it at the end, but at least you've got a working title to start with. So that focuses your mind and keeps you going. Right, we looked at the different types of pollution. You just quickly write your notes on air pollution, toxic fumes, vehicles, factories, industrial smoke, fossil fuels, and the hole in the ozone layer. That's all air pollution. Water pollution, we read quite a bit of that. Ships and oil spillages, direct sewage going into the ocean, overfishing, islands of trash. So that could come under water pollution. Then you quickly write about land pollution. Write down some words. Toxic chemicals from landfills, which leach into the water table. Plastic, it never biodegrades except into tiny little fragments, which we now learn all the fish have eaten. So we end up eating our own plastic. Maybe that's called poetic justice, I don't know. Now, forests used to cover 60% of the world. Now they're down to 10%, and we're cutting them down every day. So write down your few notes on those things, the different types of pollution. Then what? We have to write causes and effects. Try and think of that. Because if you spend 10 to 15 minutes doing this, you're going to write a lovely essay because it's all there in front of you. You just have to put it into proper sentences and paragraphs. Some people still don't write paragraphs in F2. Can you believe it? Anyway, causes and effects. The first one we're looking at is air pollution. Okay. Too much carbon dioxide causes what? Global warming. Smog causes asthma and other respiratory diseases. Indoor air pollution is 200 to 500% more horrid than outside one. Why? Because of the chemicals we've got inside. Carpets, paints, computers, fridges, they all make terrible chemicals. Somebody said you've got over 700 chemicals in your body that you do not need, that are possibly harming you just from this sort of thing. The hole is slowly closing up in the sky there, the ozone layer. Okay, but it's going to take 50 years. So it takes quite a while, and that's at the same level of pollution. But the more people we've got, perhaps the more pollution we're going to have. Water pollution, only 3% of Earth's water is drinkable. 97% is salt water. What are we going to do? And 70 to 90% of that 3% is used in agriculture for growing crops or for animals as well. So all this pollution is killing off the fish and other sea life. You won't be able to eat that. The beaches are polluted. You don't want to go there. Oil, etc. That's really disgusting. Dead animals at polluted water holes. Water keeps us alive. So it's very, very important. Yes, we're also going to run out of time soon, but let's see if we can quickly do it. And the last one we said was land pollution. Litter everywhere. Mining, toxic waste, gold mining, arsenic in the water. Johannesburg is full of that, for example. Fracking, we don't even know how bad that's going to be. And the rainforests, which help regulate temperature and weather patterns, cover 6% of the Earth's surface, and they have 50% of all animal and plant species. And more than 25% of all medicine comes from there, from these plant species. So what are we going to do? We're going to have no medicine next. Trees give off oxygen, which protect the world from global warming. Okay, so you just make little notes like that straight out of your head. Then your third section, how do you raise awareness? If we look at political parties at the moment, like Extinction Rebellion and other green parties, they're causing quite a hoo-ha at the moment everywhere. Oh, that's horrible. Yes, the sea full of raw sewage is really bad because that's where you get lots of diseases and germs. Right, a simple way that everyone could do it is promotion of recycling, because you save energy and resources. 75% of all trash can be recycled. Unwanted clothes can be given to other people. Paper, oh, we could go on and on and on. And then finally, as we said, useful vocabulary, words to do with pollution and harmful effects, then signposting to join sentences and to join paragraphs, figures of speech to make you look good. You write them all down, as many as you can, and then you try to use them. Okay? But if you run out of time like we had, I don't think you would do that. Because as I said, you write all that, then it's so easy for you to write that essay. So hopefully that lot will help you in future. And thanks very much for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you next time.